Hello, love bugs. It's your girl JB, and today I'm talking about mental health and creativity. Back in 1978, there was a study done by a neuroscientist by the name of Nancy Anderson, and she did a link between mental health and creativity, or people that were in the creative fields like artists, writers, things like that. What her study showed was 80% of the people that she tested, that she did the study on, showed that they had either been hospitalized for some sort of mental illness or mood disorder. So for me, I always talk from my personal experience as an artist. I can definitely understand and definitely relate to creativity and mental health, mental wellness having a link. Um, Before I started to get treatment, before I started to really understand anything about mental health, the brain, psychology, how the mind works, there was times that I would be up at like 3 in the morning, 2, 3, 1 in the morning, and I would be like writing, I would be making candles, I would be painting, like all at the same time. And what I have an understanding of now is that when someone is creative, very creative, um, sometimes you get a lot of thoughts all at once. And for me, not really understanding how to balance that at that time, it just was like, it felt like my brain was bombarded with all this information and I had to get it out right at that moment. And so I struggled with insomnia for so many years. And what I would do is I would just be up at night making stuff, creating stuff, doing all kind of stuff, which at the time didn't really seem like it probably made a lot of sense because it wasn't really, it had no real structure or organization to it. It was just kind of all over the place. But for me, that is the part of creativity, that is the developing part, and that is the part of getting your ideas and thoughts out. Learning now the things that I know is that's just for me is just it's the process, but just having a better understanding. When you look at people that are very creative, like people like Amy Winehouse, and back further back in the day, like Donny Hathaway, a lot of times struggle with mental illness or substance abuse. And it's kind of like the saying, the tortured soul. It's that, for me, that overwhelming feeling of so many thoughts, like I said, having so many different ideas and thoughts just kind of like in your mind, and sometimes not being able to associate or not being able to understand. It can feel and be very overwhelming, and without the right support system, it can feel like it feels like it can feel like there is no other alternative. um, and I can relate to that. I think for me now, what I do is I teach art. And what I do is I actually create a curriculum for the members. And the way I create the curriculum is in a way that let me say it this way, I do things that I felt like when I was going through my challenges and I didn't understand what I was dealing with. And I think back to those days, like my really, really dark days, my days that I was really struggling with depression, where I was struggling with anxiety, the days that I was struggling with just all kinds of different things. What would have helped me? What I think back to me at that time in my life and think what I would have had that would have been helpful or could have been helpful. And for me, things like this, like if I saw someone talking about mental health and mental wellness, and how they were able to overcome and what they went through, that would have been extremely helpful to me. And also, for me, art was something that helped me. So I think about the things that helped me navigate through my mind when it wasn't healthy. The most scariest thing I ever been through in my life, and I've been through a lot of things in my life, and have experienced a lot of trauma and seen a lot of, gruesome things. I grew up in LA as a little girl in the 80s and the 90s, and that was a very hard, difficult time for me to see some of the things I seen, people being killed and shot and murdered, all these different things I witnessed at a very young age. Nothing for me was more scary. Nothing for me was more terrifying than navigating through my own mind and through my own thoughts. That was the most scariest thing. Going into the uncharted territory of my mind was terrifying, and not knowing and not having people around me at the time where I really felt like I could trust and really knew what I was experiencing, because I would hear voices. And so let me explain what that is. When I say I would hear voices, when you say, do you hear voices, is it outside your head? Sometimes it felt like it was. What I kind of feel like now that I have a better understanding of what that hearing voices is, it felt like my thoughts were fragmented. So the voices that I heard, it felt like it was something it was something that was maybe outside of myself, and it's hard to describe. But let me say it like this. Imagine if you're dreaming, and in the dream, when you're in a dream state, and the dream state is not in like our reality that we live in. Things, you could fly in your dreams, you might be underwater, you might fall off a building, and you're gonna still survive because you're dreaming. And so imagine if you're dreaming, but you're having a nightmare. Imagine somebody's chasing you, or something horrible is happening. And in that dream, you're crying, or you're screaming, or you're trying to fight off your attacker, or whatever's happening to you in that dream, in that nightmare. I'm sorry. That's what it felt like for me in my mind, like I was living a nightmare while I was awake. So it was difficult for me to associate who I could trust, what was real, what wasn't, and it was really a dark time for me. And so how art helped me personally was to really be able to ground myself in the reality that I'm in, and be able to know that, okay, this is real. This is real for me right now, because it's something tangible. I could see, I could touch it, I could feel it. And it helped me in my mind to navigate through my mind, to associate whatever I was feeling, whatever was causing me to have the traumas and being triggered by past experiences. The art really helped me to focus and put my energy into something that I could physically, tangibly see, hold, touch, and take home and look at, and help me to untangle the very knotted and tumultuous thoughts in my head and processes. And so that's why, for me, helping others and using art as a form to help others is so important, because, like I said, I didn't feel like I really had a lot of help in the very beginning stages of me being diagnosed. I didn't feel like I had a lot of support, and I didn't feel like I had a lot of people to really understand me. I always felt like I was different, weird, odd, strange, anyway, without ever being diagnosed. But I didn't feel understood. And I endured a lot of pain and suffering emotionally from people not understanding and talking about me, making fun of me, and calling me crazy. I've been called everything from crazy, retarded, schizo, just everything you can imagine. And at that time, it really hurt because I just felt more than anything misunderstood. Now, looking back at those days of what I endured, I'm thankful because I feel like number one, it made me a stronger person, and it allowed me the opportunity and the platform to be an example for others. Because when people look at me now, they're like, oh, it doesn't look like you've been through anything. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, let me tell you, I have. And it also allows me to be able to connect deeper with myself because I've been through that. And when you've been made fun of and talked about, put down, rejected, and misunderstood at the level that I have, you have no other choice but to become best friends with yourself and to get to know yourself, because you don't have a lot of people around. Because once that kind of Pandora box is open and people feel that you have a mental illness, then the stigma is there, and it's like you start noticing people thin away from you, almost as if they're going to catch it, or if it's something like a cold that they're going to catch, or a virus that they can be transmitted just by them being in your presence. So I spent a lot of time by myself, but that time by myself allowed me to ground myself. And I also voluntarily um, put people out of my life because I wanted to heal. And I knew that a lot of people that were in my life at different points in my life was not going to be the right person for me to be around if I wanted to continue to heal and to be healthy and to be stronger. So this is just some of the things that I experienced, and the link with mental health and creativity. It's a proven scientific fact that there is definitely a link. And then the way I kind of look at it from a personal perspective, my personal perspective is, anytime someone is doing something different, anytime somebody breaks barriers or do something outside of the norm, that person is always going to be looked at as crazy. That person is always going to be looked at as weird, strange. I mean, give you a perfect example. Look at the Wright brothers back in the day with the airplane aviation. I'm sure back then, I can imagine what they probably endured. We want to fly. That has never been done before. You can't fly. If God wanted you to fly, he would have gave you wings. I'm pretty sure they probably heard that. Think about Alexander Graham Bell when he invented the telephone. You talking to people that's not there. Oh, you're crazy. You need to be locked up and you need to have a straitjacket on. But now people can't live 2 seconds without their cell phone. So without those things, without those people that seem crazy in their time in that era, then a lot of inventions and things that we enjoy on our everyday to day life, we would not have. So sometimes maybe a person is not necessarily crazy from what our society deems as crazy, but maybe they're just maybe a person that has so many thoughts and thoughts so outside of our normal sense of reality that it cannot be understood in any other kind of way. And there's no box or label to put it in. So the only thing we do is push these people to the side, lock them up in hospitals, and call them crazy without really uncovering or understanding what's going on. Now, some people, rightfully so, need to have a little bit more care done because there are different circumstances and situations that take place. But I'm speaking from my personal experience of what I endured and what I went through and how it affected me. And me becoming an artist allowed me the opportunity to change the narrative of my life and stop feeling like being labeled as and looked at as a crazy person, and feeling like a person that was intelligent, creative, and someone that can be very successful and an artist. That's my story. This is my life journey. This is JB. I appreciate. Hopefully this video was helpful and informative. Until next time, peace and blessing.